It's no secret that the WNBA referees need to be investigated immediately.
The WNBA has officially plunged into disarray. A season that began with spectacular plays and record-breaking viewership has devolved into a federal-level scandal that caught everyone off guard. Information is emerging that federal agents are discreetly investigating allegations that league officials might have been involved in singling out specific players, particularly Caitlin Clark.
The WNBA referees, man, there has been a lot of conversations this past season in regards to the commissioner, the referees, and the injuries. Now, some new data has been revealed, but we're going to talk about this thing because they trying to say the referees and all these different set issues is not responsible for the injury.
Following months of brutal fouls, overlooked calls, and questionable officiating, supporters are calling for explanations. How far does this conspiracy reach? Who is truly safeguarding the league's reputation? And why does it appear Caitlin Clark is consistently bearing the brunt of the physicality? It all began with a single jarring incident etched in fans' memories, the harsh foul that sent Caitlin Clark tumbling to the hardwood mid-season. Initially, it seemed like just another rough play in an increasingly aggressive league, but the events that followed transformed that one event into a nationwide debate. Videos showing officials remaining still as Clark absorbed hit after hit spread rapidly online. Pundits started to ask why so many hazardous plays were being ignored. The lack of response from the league only intensified the anger, leaving fans certain that something more was occurring out of sight.
When they see players like Caitlin, see players like Sophie, and all of the other big-name players making massive money, and everybody know they hate their guts. Well, not massive money like in a W sense, but more than them. They make more than them, bro. They make more than them. They might feel a type of way. How would you feel wake up going to work every day knowing that these ladies make more than me?
Pundits began to piece things together. Throughout the season, Caitlin Clark had been subjected to more flagrant fouls than any other rookie in recent history. However, when opponents targeted her, the whistles often went silent. Social media was flooded with side-by-side clips contrasting fouls on Clark, with similar plays in other games where the officiating difference was stark. Fans were no longer just upset, they were deeply suspicious.
WNBA referee operations reviews data throughout the season to address what league sources refer to as a legitimate criticism and pinpoint areas officials need to improve on throughout that process. The referee operation committee found that accusations that officiating errors have led to more injuries were unfounded. League sources told ESPN. They saying that the officiating is not leading to injuries. Well, to me, I think it is based off all of the WNBA I've seen this past season. I think a lot of their officiating is just like leading up to a bunch of stuff, bro. A bunch of stuff. Because it's getting to the point right now that the referees need to be looked upon as being alters of the game and need to be investigated on a major level, DOJ level. That's how bad the officiating is, bro.
Behind the scenes, frustration was mounting in locker rooms. It's reported that players lamented the officiating's inconsistency wasn't just poor, it was hazardous. Coaches started to challenge the league's accountability, questioning how many more uncalled infractions it would take for a serious injury to occur. When Clark was asked about the growing friction, her response was controlled yet telling, "I just play through it." That simple phrase carried immense weight, suggesting the emotional burden the ordeal had placed upon her. Then the bombshell dropped. Leaked information suggested federal authorities were notified after numerous fans submitted formal complaints concerning player safety and potential referee misconduct.
Because we know this year there was major injuries on a legendary level. Now, this article goes on to say the WNBA will not punish through fines or suspension officials for a single error, but it is instead assess their body of work through the season. If there is a common string of mistakes, that will be addressed, sources has said. So basically, if you miss a call and you alter a game, y'all want to know what the W said? Oh, don't worry about it. We got to see a string of events, and then we're going to handle that behind the scenes. And y'all mean to tell me that shouldn't spark a DOJ, Department of Justice, governmental investigation? I think it should be. And I think it should be a major investigation into the W as a whole. Kathy should be investigated. Everything should be investigated based off everything we heard, seen, probably documented. I'm not the only one, bro.
The WNBA attempted to minimize the issue, but the harm was already inflicted. The question hanging over the league was no longer about referee competence. It was about potential bias, and as more people demanded accountability, the league's crisis was only getting started. As videos of Caitlin Clark's ignored fouls circulated across all social media platforms, one fact became undeniable: the WNBA was unwilling to comment. Days turned into weeks, with no formal statement from the league or Commissioner Kathy Engelbert. The silence was palpable. Fans viewed it not as a simple oversight, but as deliberate avoidance. Hashtags like Jane Protect Caitlin Clark and WNBA Rex Exposed began to trend. As the public called for accountability, major sports networks started to report on the outrage, highlighting how the league's passivity was eroding trust among its most dedicated followers. The discontent wasn't confined to the internet. In arenas, spectators displayed signs that read "Fair play for all" and "Rex under watch." Each time Clark was knocked down, the chorus of boos for the officials grew louder. Journalists characterized the atmosphere as fraught, noting that even seasoned players looked disturbed by the escalating PR crisis. Yet WNBA leadership continued to withhold any substantial response, allowing fans to speculate wildly. In private, several former officials spoke off the record, depicting a system under immense strain. They disclosed that many refs were overworked, undercompensated, and in constant fear of demotion. Some even implied that favoritism and internal league politics could influence assignments for major games. Paired with Clark's meteoric rise and polarizing status, this created a disturbing scenario where personal prejudice could easily affect professional decisions. By then, it wasn't only Clark's supporters sounding the alarm. Pundits and even opposing coaches started to concede that the problem went beyond sportsmanship into matters of player safety and the league's integrity. ESPN segments questioned if the WNBA was losing its grip on its own story, offering no explanations and taking no action. Public pressure mounted. Then, the tipping point arrived. An insider from the officiating department allegedly reached out to federal authorities, claiming that the patterns in missed calls might not be coincidental. The FBI saw grounds to investigate further, and just like that, what began as online outrage was escalating into a major federal inquiry. The crucial moment arrived when a former WNBA official, whose name is protected, came forward with what they termed evidence of intentional negligence. Initial reports suggest this insider claimed that certain refs faced pressure, whether direct or indirect, to let the game play on when it involved high-profile athletes like Caitlin Clark. The alleged motive was that controversy creates buzz, and buzz translates to rating. This was an explosive accusation that cast the league's silence in a completely different light. Now, fans weren't just accusing refs of prejudice, they were accusing the WNBA of manufacturing chaos for financial gain. Sources near the probe hinted the insider supplied internal emails and messages indicating league executives had discussed how on-court physicality increases viewer engagement. Those words were the fuel that set the internet ablaze. Commentators charged the WNBA with making Clark a sacrificial pawn in their narrative, the star rookie whose rough treatment was tacitly approved because it kept audiences engaged. The FBI's involvement confirmed this was no longer a mere fan conspiracy. It was a serious matter of potential organizational misconduct. The insider's allegations sent tremors through the media. Sports reporters who had previously brushed off fan complaints were now demanding answers. Every major network sought a statement, but the league office remained silent. Players started to feel the pressure of the widening scandal, uncertain if they were part of something far bigger than basketball. Meanwhile, fans kept analyzing game tapes, aligning the insider's claims with countless referee decisions. The trends were disturbing: delayed whistles, ignored fouls, and calls that seemed to prioritize storylines over impartiality. Social media had become a public trial, and the verdict was clear. If the allegations were accurate, the league's entire reputation was on the line as federal agents began questioning former officials and league staff. The issue was no longer just about referees' mistakes, it was whether the league had orchestrated this turmoil intentionally, and the truth, as many had feared, was on the verge of being exposed. When the news hit that the FBI had launched a preliminary inquiry into the WNBA's officiating, the sports world was stunned. What had started as fan whispers had escalated to the highest echelons of law enforcement. Per various sources, the Bureau was probing allegations of misconduct, bias, and the possible manipulation of game results. Agents reportedly started gathering footage, communication logs, and even referee assignment sheets to see if a pattern of deliberate neglect towards specific players, especially Caitlin Clark, existed. The move by the FBI sent a shockwave through the league's headquarters. Executives hastily issued a carefully crafted statement declaring that the WNBA welcomes transparency and fully supports integrity in officiating. However, this damage control effort did little to appease a fanbase that had already formed its opinion. Many saw the statement as yet another corporate evasion instead of true accountability. Social media was unsparing, with users tagging the FBI in old game highlights, pleading with investigators to look at this one. Within the league, a sense of panic took hold. Coaches and players were abruptly told not to speak publicly, while team owners began retaining legal counsel. Sources revealed several referees were quietly suspended or reassigned during the review, though the league wouldn't confirm any specifics. Simultaneously, sports media like ESPN and Bleacher Report provided nonstop coverage of the crisis, labeling it the most significant threat to integrity in WNBA history. The FBI's initial findings supposedly indicated inconsistencies in officiating, particularly in games featuring Caitlin Clark's team. While no charges were filed, the mere implication was sufficient to destroy trust throughout the league. Fans who once cheered the WNBA's ascent now second-guessed every shot, every call, every final score. As the federal probe continued, rumors circulated that the Bureau had obtained private messages hinting at internal discussions about Clark's role in the league's media strategy. If accurate, it meant officials weren't simply making errors, they were protecting a brand, and for the WNBA, that was a far more destructive revelation than any single missed call. The moment the FBI inquiry went public, the media firestorm erupted. Every major sports channel, from ESPN to Fox Sports, aired segments analyzing every uncalled foul involving Caitlin Clark. Talk shows, podcasts, and online commentators dissected slow-motion footage, contrasting it with similar fouls in the men's game that prompted immediate penalties. The lack of consistency was stark. Headlines shouted about corruption as sports panels argued whether the WNBA had made its refs scapegoats to hide larger systemic problems. Public confidence plummeted. The WNBA had spent years earning legitimacy, but this crisis risked erasing it all in an instant. Supporters who had championed the league's expansion now called for resignations. Kathy Engelbert, typically composed and diplomatic, was suddenly besieged from all sides. Detractors accused her of valuing brand protection over player well-being. Even steadfast sponsors began to discreetly reassess their partnerships, wary of being associated with FBI-related headlines. Caitlin Clark, meanwhile, became an icon of both sympathy and debate. Her supporters rallied around her, branding her the league's most unjustly treated player, yet others argued she was inadvertently worsening the situation with her silence, implying her public statements or lack thereof were being tightly controlled by her team. Every look she gave on the court was scrutinized. Concurrently, both active and retired players began to weigh in. Some stood by the referees, arguing their job was thankless and incredibly difficult. Others suggested favoritism was an issue long before Clark joined, but the league ignored it because no one else had her level of fame. This disagreement erupted into public disputes online as players debated the investigation's merit. Throughout it all, one reality emerged: the league's strategy of ignoring the controversy had failed spectacularly. The FBI was no longer just investigating referees, they were now examining potential communications between league executives and their media associates. The scandal had transcended basketball, and the next chapter would determine the WNBA's entire future. Behind the scenes, the WNBA's New York headquarters became a cauldron of pressure. Meetings once focused on marketing and sponsorships were now entirely devoted to crisis management. Sources within the league reported that executives were desperately trying to manage the fallout as FBI agents started requesting internal communications. Alarm spread when it was reported that emails about managing narratives and media perception were among the evidence under review. These phrases alone sent a chill through the organization, implying the league may have valued its image above player safety. The referees went quiet. Most declined to comment publicly, fearing professional or legal repercussions. Several experienced officials reportedly retained attorneys, uncertain if they were considered witnesses or targets of the investigation. Meanwhile, coaches and team personnel started privately wondering what the league office truly knew. An insider revealed that certain referees had previously lodged complaints about pressure from higher-ups to allow high-contact games to continue for entertainment purposes. If this were substantiated, it would validate what fans long believed, that the WNBA had knowingly permitted chaos to inflate its ratings. Kathy Engelbert endured the most challenging week of her career. League sources described her as visibly stressed, handling endless calls from team owners who needed assurance the FBI's probe wouldn't unearth something ruinous. Some even hinted that a temporary change in leadership might be required to salvage the WNBA's brand. The once lauded commissioner, celebrated for driving growth, was now portrayed as careless and disconnected. Sponsors began to halt ad buys. TV networks reportedly sought contractual guarantees in case the inquiry intensified. For the players, the instability was agonizing. Some worried that games could be delayed or even called off. The WNBA's dream season, powered by Caitlin Clark's stardom, had devolved into its bleakest moment, and still the most damaging news was yet to break. The FBI had apparently found internal communications suggesting direct meddling in officiating assignments for crucial games. If true, this pointed to manipulation at the highest echelons, a scandal that could implode the league entirely. Just as the league felt things could not deteriorate further, the situation completely unraveled. A collection of confidential documents, purportedly linked to the FBI probe, was leaked to the public. These files, reportedly containing referee schedules, internal memos, and email excerpts, showed a troubling pattern of manipulation and oversight. Fans scrutinized every word, uncovering messages where league personnel discussed protecting the product and maintaining narrative balance. These ambiguous yet ominous phrases sparked a massive outcry. For the public, it was confirmation of their worst fears. The WNBA wasn't merely being negligent, it was actively manipulating events. Screenshots of the alleged emails went viral. One particularly shared post featured a line supposedly from a senior official: "We can't have Clark dominating every headline. It's bad for parity." Authentic or not, the impact of this perception was catastrophic. Fans accused the league of using referees to manipulate game results and craft storylines. Even media outlets that had previously defended the WNBA were now pressing for answers. ESPN commentators debated on air if the league had violated an ethical boundary, while online journalists analyzed every syllable of the leaked material. Inside the WNBA, the turmoil peaked. Referees felt betrayed, players felt exploited, and fans felt deceived. The league's stated commitment to integrity had become a public mockery. Caitlin Clark's team issued a brief statement. "Caitlin's focus remains on basketball." This terse reply said more than words could. The crisis had become too massive for any one player to influence. Federal agents confirmed the leaked documents' authenticity would be verified, but the reputational harm was done. Sponsors started to publicly back away, suspending deals and demanding transparency reports. The WNBA's credibility, once its greatest strength, was collapsing. As the inquiry progressed, rumors began to circulate that indictments might follow. The once promising future of women's basketball was now clouded by the most severe scandal in its history. In the days following the leaks, the WNBA's leadership structure started to crumble. Several high-ranking officials resigned discreetly, citing personal reasons, though sources claimed it was a strategic move to control the damage. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert was reportedly urged by team owners to take an indefinite leave of absence as the investigation continued. What was once a celebrated movement for women's sports had devolved into a PR catastrophe. Every news outlet, every publication, and every fan forum posed the same question: how did things get so dire? The FBI's probe was still underway, but initial reports indicated that sufficient irregularities existed to justify a comprehensive audit of the league's officiating procedure. Referees were mandated to undergo new training, and an outside review board of independent analysts and retired officials was established to supervise upcoming games. For most fans, these measures were insufficient and came too late. The WNBA's image had been severely tarnished, and rebuilding public trust appeared to be a monumental task. Caitlin Clark, in the meantime, became an accidental icon of the reform movement. Despite her efforts to avoid the spotlight, her name was now inextricably linked to the most significant crisis in WNBA history. Pundits noted that her composed and focused demeanor throughout the ordeal only bolstered her reputation. She had become both a victim and a change agent, symbolizing every player's desire for fairness. For the league, however, the path to recovery would be arduous. Sponsors insisted on full transparency before renewing their contracts, as fans relentlessly called for accountability on social media. Many argued that the only solution was a complete restructuring, from the executive offices down to the referee development programs. As a former coach remarked, "Basketball thrives on integrity." The investigation had revealed deep flaws, but it also presented an opportunity to rebuild on a stronger foundation. Whether the WNBA could emerge from this crisis or succumb to its own corruption was yet to be determined. But one thing was undeniable: the league had been irrevocably altered. The WNBA's vision of expansion and mainstream acceptance has been marred by scandal, mistrust, and federal inquiry. What started with concerns over aggressive play against Caitlin Clark has escalated into an unprecedented FBI investigation, exposing the league's most profound vulnerability. Players, fans, and officials alike are now at a pivotal moment, demanding transparency, safety, and meaningful change. Whether the WNBA can restore its integrity or collapse under the weight of its errors will be decided by its next step. But one truth is clear: this crisis has permanently shifted the public's perception of the league, and a return to the past is impossible.